Dr. Nova Okafor pressed her palm against the curved glass wall of the Mars Habitat Dome, watching the Utah desert shimmer in waves of heat beyond. Inside this controlled atmosphere, her prototype plants reached toward artificial suns, their leaves a defiant green against the red-tinted landscape that mimicked humanity's next home. But tonight, as the desert cooled and real stars emerged overhead, Nova felt the familiar ache in her chest, the one that had nothing to do with atmospheric pressure. She was 27 and brilliant, with 3 degrees and a mind that could calculate the exact nutritional needs of a Mars colony down to the milligram. Yet here, surrounded by her life's work, she felt as barren as the Martian soil she spent her days trying to conquer. Her colleagues at NASA called her the plant whisperer. But Nova sometimes wondered if she'd forgotten how to speak to her own heart. The greenhouse hummed around her with the sound of climate controls and water recyclers, a mechanical lullaby that had become more familiar than any human voice. She walked between the growing tables, her fingertips trailing along leaves that knew her touch but not her longing. Cherry tomatoes gleamed like tiny red planets, lettuce unfurled in perfect spirals, and experimental herbs released fragrances that would someday comfort homesick colonists millions of miles from Earth. But who will I share it with? She whispered to the plants, her voice barely audible above the ventilation systems. This question had been growing inside her like an unwelcome weed, tangling around her dreams of Mars with tendrils of loneliness. Her tablet chimed softly with tomorrow's schedule, atmospheric adjustments at dawn, gravity simulation tests, meetings with the mission planners who spoke of her future with such certainty. They saw her as essential cargo for the Red Planet, a brilliant mind housed in a body they assumed would adapt, survive, contribute. None of them asked if her heart was prepared for the journey. Nova sank into her desk chair, surrounded by monitors displaying data streams from sensors embedded throughout the dome. Soil moisture, nutrient levels, growth rates, atmospheric composition, everything quantified, everything controlled. She'd made growing food an exact science. But the emptiness inside her refused to respond to any formula outside. A shooting star traced a silver line across the darkness, and Nova closed her eyes, making the same wish she'd carried for months, that somehow she might find someone who could love both her dreams and her fears. Someone who could see beauty in her sterile precision and help her discover the magic she'd forgotten while chasing the stars. The wind picked up, rattling the dome's support structures with a sound like distant applause. Somewhere in that rhythm, Nova thought she heard possibility calling, though she couldn't yet imagine what form it might take. She only knew that her perfectly controlled world felt suddenly fragile, as if one unexpected element could change everything. Rising from her chair, she moved to the observation window again, pressing both palms against the cool surface. The desert stretched endlessly beyond, beautiful and harsh, like the dreams that pulled her toward an alien sky. Tomorrow would bring more tests, more preparations, more steps toward a future that felt increasingly lonely despite its grandeur. But tonight, something in the air felt different. Tonight, as the artificial atmosphere cycled around her and her hybrid plants rustled with secrets she couldn't quite hear, Nova sensed that change was coming, change as inevitable as the rising of 2 moons over an undiscovered world. She didn't yet know that 60 feet above her head, suspended by silks in a training rig, another soul was learning to fall gracefully, preparing for a different kind of flight entirely. The crash came at 11:47 p.m. According to the automatic incident log that would later puzzle facility managers, Nova was running late-night atmospheric tests when the dome's emergency lighting flickered on, casting everything in amber urgency. Through the glass ceiling, a dark shape plummeted past the stars, not falling, but flying with the fluid grace of someone who understood gravity as a dance partner rather than a master. The figure moved through the air like water finding its level, silk fabrics trailing like wings against the night sky. But something went wrong. A support cable snapped. Or perhaps the wind shifted and suddenly grace became chaos as the aerial performer crashed through the dome's specially designed access panel, which had been left open for the evening's ventilation cycle. Nova watched in stunned fascination as the intruder descended into her sterile world like a fallen angel, dark silks billowing as they caught air and slowed the fall. The figure landed with surprising gentleness among her prized tomato vines, coming to rest in a cascade of fabric and limbs that somehow avoided damaging a single plant. Oh, came a voice like honey poured over gravel, slightly breathless but uninjured. This is not the landing I rehearsed. Nova stood frozen, her tablet forgotten in her hands as she stared at the most beautiful disruption her ordered world had ever encountered. The stranger untangled themselves from the silks with fluid movements, revealing a person whose every gesture seemed choreographed by wind and starlight. Dark hair escaped from what had once been a neat bun, framing features that belonged in Renaissance paintings, sharp cheekbones softened by eyes that held depths Nova wanted to explore. "I'm so sorry," the intruder continued, finally standing fully upright and brushing soil from hands that moved like birds. "I'm Cirrus Delacroix. I was practicing in the training rig above, and my anchor cable. Well, clearly it had other plans." Cirrus, Nova repeated, the name feeling strange and wonderful on her tongue. Like the clouds, a smile spread across Cirrus's face, transforming apology into something that made Nova's carefully controlled environment suddenly feel electric. "Exactly like the clouds. And you must be the plant genius everyone whispers about, Dr. Okafor, right? Though I have to say, your security system could use some work." Nova found herself laughing, and sounds so foreign in this space that it seemed to surprise her own plants. "Most people don't try to infiltrate through the ceiling. I'm Nova, and—" she gestured helplessly at her disrupted world. "This is definitely not standard protocol." "Nova," Cirrus said, and something in the way they spoke her name made it sound like poetry. Like the stars that create new elements in the universe, the air between them hummed with something that had nothing to do with the dome's climate control systems. Nova noticed everything at once: the way Cirrus stood with weight perfectly balanced, ready to move in any direction. The calluses on their hands that spoke of years spent defying gravity. The way their eyes cataloged the greenhouse with the same intense focus Nova brought to her own work. "What is this place?" Cirrus asked, moving deeper into the dome with steps that barely disturbed the carefully raked soil between the growing beds. "It feels like Earth pretending to be somewhere else." "Mars," Nova said simply. "We're simulating agricultural conditions for future colonies. This dome maintains atmospheric composition similar to what our habitats will need on the red planet." Cirrus paused beside a table of flourishing herbs, inhaling deeply. "Lavender," they murmured, "and something I don't recognize, something that smells like hope and homesickness mixed together." "Martian comfort blend," Nova explained, surprised by how easily she shared details she usually kept clinical. "I'm developing herb combinations that will provide psychological as well as nutritional benefits for colonists. The lavender promotes calm, the mint aids digestion, and the experimental varietals." She hesitated. "Yes?" Cirrus prompted, moving closer with the fluid grace that made Nova's pulse quicken. "They're designed to smell like earth rain," Nova admitted. For when people need to remember home, the silence that followed felt profound rather than awkward. Filled with the quiet sounds of plants growing and two people discovering they understood something essential about longing. "You're going to Mars," Cirrus said. Not quite a question. That's the plan. Nova's voice carried certainty she didn't entirely feel, and leaving all this behind. Cirrus gestured to encompass not just the greenhouse, but something larger: the weight of gravity, the smell of desert wind, the unpredictability of earthbound life. Taking it with me, actually. These plants, this knowledge, it's how humans will survive on an alien world. Cirrus moved to the observation window where Nova had stood earlier, pressing their own palm against the glass. "I used to fly," they said quietly. Not like this, they gestured to the silks still puddled among the tomatoes, but really fly. 40 feet up, no nets, just trust and training and the knowledge that gravity would either catch me or teach me to catch myself. Used to. Shoulder injury 6 months ago. Doctors say it'll heal, but Cirrus shrugged with the casual grace of someone who'd learned to accept uncertainty. So now I'm learning different things. How to grow healing herbs, how to find peace with my feet on the ground, how to fall into greenhouses and meet beautiful scientists who dream of feeding Mars. The compliment landed like a butterfly on Nova's shoe. 3 days later, Nova found herself explaining atmospheric pressure to someone whose understanding of air came from dancing through it rather than measuring it. Cirrus had returned each evening after their physical therapy sessions. Drawn back to the dome by what they called gravitational curiosity and what Nova was beginning to recognize as something far more complex. "So the plants don't know they're not really on Mars?" Cirrus asked, crouched beside a bed of experimental lettuce with the same focused attention they'd once brought to perfecting aerial routines. "They respond to the conditions we create," Nova explained. Kneeling beside them, close enough to catch the scent of lavender oil and something uniquely Cirrus like mountain air and possibility. Lower atmospheric pressure, different light spectrum, reduced gravity simulation. As far as they're concerned, this is their world. Cirrus reached out slowly, asking permission with their eyes before touching a lettuce leaf. "It's beautiful. Like they're dreaming of being earthbound while reaching for alien stars." The poetry in the observation made Nova's chest tighten with unexpected emotion. She'd spent years thinking of her plants in terms of data points and growth metrics, but Cirrus saw stories in every stem, dreams in every leaf pattern. "You see them differently than I do," Nova said softly. "Not differently, just." With different eyes, Cirrus sat back on their heels, studying Nova with the same gentle intensity they'd shown the plants. "You see the science that keeps them alive. I see the love that makes them want to live. Both are necessary." They worked in comfortable silence as the dome's artificial sunset painted everything in warm amber light. Nova taught Cirrus to read soil pH levels, while Cirrus showed Nova how to feel a plant's readiness to be harvested through touch rather than measurement. Their hands brushed frequently over data tablets, around plant stems, reaching for the same tools, each contact sending small electric shocks through Nova's carefully ordered nervous system. "Can I ask you something?" Cirrus said as they cleaned soil from their fingers at the wash station. "Of course. What does Mars feel like in your dreams?" Nova paused, water running over her hands as she considered the question no one had ever asked. "Red," she said finally, "and quiet. So quiet you can hear your own heartbeat echoing in your helmet. But also," she struggled for words, "hopeful. Like humanity's next great chapter waiting to be written. Are you afraid? The honesty in the question deserved honest response. Terrified, Nova admitted. Not of the science or the risks or even the isolation. I'm afraid I'll get there and realize I've spent so much time preparing to feed other people's dreams that I forgot to nurture my own. Cirrus dried their hands slowly, thoughtfully. What are your dreams? The ones that aren't about Mars? I don't know anymore. The confession felt like stepping off solid ground. I've been so focused on the mission that everything else feels theoretical, like love. The word hung in the air between them, as tangible as the humidity that kept Nova's plants thriving. She looked up to find Cirrus watching her with an expression so tender it made her knees weak. Especially like love, Nova whispered. Cirrus moved closer. Close enough that Nova could see flecks of gold in their dark eyes. Close enough to feel the warmth radiating from skin that knew sunshine and wind and the rush of defying gravity. You know, Cirrus said gently. Some of the most beautiful things grow in impossible conditions before Nova could respond. Cirrus reached out and brushed a strand of hair from her face. The touch so gentle it felt like being blessed by butterfly wings. The simple gesture unlocked something in Nova's chest that she hadn't realized was caged. I used to fly, Cirrus continued, their hands still resting against Nova's cheek. Because being in the air felt like the only place I could be completely myself. But here with you, with these plants that dream of other worlds, I feel more grounded than I have in years, even with your injury. Cirrus's smile held complex shadows, especially because of it. Sometimes we need to lose our wings to discover we were always meant to help other things grow. Nova leaned into the touch without conscious thought, her body making decisions her mind was still processing. I don't know how to do this, she admitted. Do what? Feel this much. Want something that isn't mapped out in mission. Parameters and probability assessments, Cirrus's. Thumb traced the line of Nova's cheekbone with the same precision they'd once used to calculate aerial trajectories. What do your instruments tell you about this moment? Nova closed her eyes, focusing on data her scientific training had never prepared her to collect. Heart rate elevated. Skin temperature increased. Breathing pattern irregular. All systems showing. Unprecedented readings. And how does it feel to be unmeasurable? Nova opened her eyes to find Cirrus watching her with infinite patience. As if they understood that some discoveries couldn't be rushed. Like flying, she whispered. The admission seemed to unlock something in both of them. Cirrus stepped closer until they were sharing breath. Sharing the warm microclimate their bodies created in the space between reaching and receiving. Nova, Cirrus said, their voice rough with something that sounded like prayer. Would you teach me about Mars? Really teach me not just the science, but the dream that pulls you toward the stars? Would you teach me to fly, even with my feet on the ground? Instead of answering with words, Cirrus took Nova's hands and placed them on their own shoulders, then wrapped their arms around Nova's waist with the reverent care of someone handling something precious and fragile. Flying lesson number 1, Cirrus murmured against Nova's ear, is learning to trust the air to hold you. But first, you have to trust yourself to let go. And as they swayed together among plants that dreamed of alien soil, Nova realized she was already falling not through space toward a distant red planet, but into something far more mysterious and essential. The gravitational pull of a heart that saw beauty in her controlled chaos and wanted to help her discover what grew in the space between earth and sky. The low-gravity simulation chamber had been Nova's private sanctuary for months, a place where she tested how plants and equipment would behave in Mars' reduced gravitational field. But tonight, with Cirrus floating beside her in the ethereal dance of one-third Earth gravity, the sterile test chamber had become something magical. "This is how you'll move on Mars," Nova said, though her voice came out breathier than she'd intended as she watched Cirrus adapt to the altered physics with the instinctive grace of someone born to defy natural laws. Cirrus pushed gently off the chamber wall, drifting toward Nova with movements that belonged in dreams. In the reduced gravity, their injured shoulders showed no limitation, their body remembering flight in ways that made Nova's scientific mind struggle to focus on anything beyond the pure beauty of motion. "It's like dancing underwater," Cirrus murmured, reaching Nova and steadying themselves with hands on her shoulders. "But with air that lets you breathe." The touch sent electric currents through Nova's nervous system, each point of contact hyper-aware in the strange physics that surrounded them. They floated together, tethered only by the connection of Cirrus's palms against her lab coat. And Nova had never felt more untethered from everything she thought she understood about attraction. "Show me," Cirrus whispered, their faces inches apart in the artificial atmosphere. "Show me how you'll move when you're walking on another world." Nova demonstrated the bouncing gait Mars colonists would need to master. But her careful explanations dissolved into breathless laughter as Cirrus transformed each movement into something that looked more like choreography than locomotion. In one-third gravity, every gesture became amplified, every glance more significant, every shared breath a small miracle of proximity. "You're beautiful when you forget to be scientific," Cirrus said, catching Nova's hand as they both drifted near the chamber's viewing window. Beyond the glass, Earth's full moon painted the Utah desert in silver light that seemed to pool in Cirrus's eyes. "I don't know how to forget," Nova admitted, though her body was already learning, already adapting to this new atmosphere of want and possibility. "Then don't forget," Cirrus replied, drawing Nova closer with the kind of slow inevitability that characterized orbital mechanics. "Just expand your data set." They were close enough now that Nova could map the geography of Cirrus's face in the chamber's dim, lighting the small scar above their left eyebrow, the way their lips curved slightly upward even in repose, the flecks of green and gold that made their eyes look like Earth seen from space. "Nova," Cirrus said, and their voice carried the weight of confession. "I need you to know something." "What?" Nova's whisper barely disturbed the recycled air between them. "I didn't fall through your ceiling by accident." The admission should have shocked Nova, but instead it sent warm recognition flooding through her chest. "I know," she said softly. "Your anchor cable was perfectly intact when I checked it the next morning." Cirrus's eyes widened. "You checked?" "I check everything. It's who I am." Nova reached up to trace the line of Cirrus's jaw with fingertips that trembled despite the steady gravity. "But I didn't report it because I didn't want you to stop coming back." "Nova," Cirrus breathed, and the sound of her name had never carried such reverence. "I've been training for Mars for 3 years," Nova continued, the words spilling out in the reduced gravity like secrets to light to contain. Learning to survive in hostile environments, to adapt to alien conditions, to find ways to nurture life where none should exist. But I never learned how to do this, how to want someone so much it changes the atmosphere of my entire world. Cirrus responded by pressing closer, until they were sharing the same pocket of recycled air. The same careful balance between falling and floating. I've been pretending my shoulder is healing slower than it is, they confessed. Making excuses to stay grounded because leaving means I won't have reasons to see you. The honesty hung between them like gravity itself, invisible but undeniable, pulling them toward collision or orbit. The mission planners announced the final crew selections yesterday, Nova said, though she'd planned to keep this information private until she'd processed it herself. And I'm going. Official assignment to the first agricultural team. Launch window in 18 months. Cirrus's expression shifted through complex calculations Nova recognized from her own experience processing impossible equations. Congratulations, they said, and meant it despite the shadow that crossed their features. Unless, Nova continued, her heart hammering against her ribs like something caged and desperate. Unless I find a reason to recommend they consider applications from specialists in gravity adaptation and atmospheric movement. Nova, what are you saying? I'm saying that Mars will need people who understand how to move gracefully in altered physics. People who can teach colonists to adapt their bodies to alien conditions. People who can help Earthbound humans learn to fly in reduced gravity. Cirrus stared at her with an expression so intense Nova felt like a binary star caught in the gravitational field of something larger than herself. Are you asking me to come to Mars with you? I'm asking, Nova said, floating closer until their foreheads touched and she could feel Cirrus's breath warm against her lips. If you think love is worth learning to fly in 1/3 gravity, the answer came not in words but in the way Cirrus closed the last inches between them. Their lips meeting Nova's with the soft inevitability of celestial bodies finding their perfect orbital distance. The kiss tasted like possibility and felt like coming home to a place she'd never been but always dreamed of finding. In the artificial atmosphere of a chamber designed to simulate alien worlds. Nova discovered that some forces were universal, that attraction operated by the same fundamental laws whether you stood on Earth, Mars, or in the space between heartbeats where two people decided to stop being careful and start being brave when they finally separated, still floating in each other's arms. Cirrus smiled with the radiance of someone who'd just discovered a new way to fly. Does NASA accept applications from former circus performers with a specialty in defying gravity? They do now, Nova whispered, and sealed the promise with another kiss that tasted like starlight and felt like the beginning of humanity's most beautiful space mission. 2 months later, Nova stood in the dome at dawn, watching Cirrus demonstrate zero-gravity herb harvesting techniques to a small group of NASA officials. The sight of her partner and the words still sent thrills through her nervous system, moving through the air with silk-wrapped precision while explaining the psychological benefits of aromatic plants had become Nova's favorite form of morning coffee. Cirrus had not only been accepted into the Mars mission program but had revolutionized their approach to colonist adaptation training. Their unique combination of aerial expertise and newfound agricultural knowledge made them invaluable for teaching future Martians how to move efficiently in reduced gravity while maintaining the physical and emotional wellness that growing things provided. Dr. Okafor called Mission Commander Sarah Chen as the demonstration concluded. Could we have a moment? Nova joined the officials while Cirrus began harvesting the morning's herbs with movements so graceful they made routine maintenance look like performance art, even after months of watching. Nova still felt her breath catch when Cirrus moved through space as if gravity were merely a suggestion. The simulation data is impressive, Commander Chen continued. Colonist adaptation rates are 60% higher when movement training is combined with agricultural therapy. The psychological profiles show significant improvement in stress management and team cohesion. Cirrus has revolutionized our understanding of human adaptation to alien environments, Nova replied. Trying to maintain professional composure while watching her partner coax cherry tomatoes from their vines with fingers that knew exactly how much pressure to apply, which brings us to our announcement. Commander Chen said with a smile that suggested good news incoming. Mission Control has approved an accelerated timeline. The agricultural team will launch in 14 months instead of 18, and she paused for emphasis. We're implementing the Delacroix protocol as standard training for all colonists. Nova's heart performed complex orbital mechanics in her chest. The Delacroix protocol? Movement adaptation combined with therapeutic horticulture, developed jointly by you and specialist Delacroix. It's being incorporated into the core mission profile as the officials departed with promises of expanded funding and resources. Nova found herself alone in the dome with the person who had become both her greatest discovery and her most essential element. Did you hear? She called to Cirrus, who was suspended among the upper-tier plants. Checking growth rates in the lower gravity zones, that were officially the first couple assigned to jointly develop Mars colonization protocols. Cirrus descended on their silks like a falling star, landing softly beside Nova with a grace that still made her feel like she was witnessing magic. I heard. I also heard Commander Chen refer to us as essential mission personnel with unique complementary expertise. Is that NASA's way of saying they approve of us dating? Cirrus laughed, the sound filling the dome with warmth that had nothing to do with climate control. I think it's NASA's way of saying they've never seen test scores improve the way ours have since we started working together. It was true. Nova's agricultural systems had become more efficient, more responsive to colonist needs. Cirrus's adaptation protocols showed unprecedented success rates. Together, they had created something neither could have achieved alone, a synthesis of earth science and aerial artistry that transformed survival into thriving. Nova, Cirrus said. And something in their tone made her look up from her mental cataloging of their professional achievements. I need to tell you something. What is it? Cirrus moved to the observation window where they'd shared so many conversations, their reflection ghost-like against the desert landscape beyond. I've been thinking about Mars, really thinking about it. Not just the mission or the opportunity or even the chance to fly in low gravity. Nova joined them at the window, close enough to feel the warmth radiating from Cirrus's skin, close enough to count their heartbeats and the pulse visible at their throat. What have you been thinking about? About waking up 48 million miles from Earth and knowing that everyone I've ever loved is on a different planet. About growing old in an alien atmosphere. About Cirrus's voice grew soft, vulnerable. About whether love is strong enough to survive that kind of distance from everything familiar. Nova felt her own fears crystallizing in Cirrus's words. She'd been so focused on the technical challenges of Mars that she'd barely let herself consider the emotional reality of leaving Earth and everyone on it forever. And then I realized, Cirrus continued, turning to face Nova with eyes that held the depth of desert skies, that I was asking the wrong question. What's the right question? Not whether love is strong enough to survive the distance from Earth, but whether I'm brave enough to build a home with you anywhere in the universe. Nova's breath caught in her throat as Cirrus reached into their pocket and withdrew something small and gleaming, not a ring, but something far more meaningful. It was a seed pod from one of their hybrid comfort herbs, the varieties they developed together to help future colonists remember the scent of home. This contains seeds from the first plant we grew together, Cirrus said, holding the pod between them like a promise. Seeds that carry DNA from Earth flowers but have adapted to Martian conditions. They're designed to thrive in alien soil while maintaining everything essential about what makes them beautiful. Nova stared at the small object that represented months of their combined work. Their late-night conversations, their gradual discovery that love could be both scientifically logical and completely magical. Nova Okafor, Cirrus continued, their voice steady despite the emotion that made their hands tremble. Will you plant the first garden of love on Mars with me? Will you teach me to grow impossible things in alien soil while I teach you that some forms of flight don't require leaving the ground? The proposal was so perfectly them agricultural and poetic, practical and romantic, grounded in shared work and reaching toward shared dreams that Nova felt tears spill over before she could think to measure their salinity or analyze their emotional significance. Yes, she whispered, then louder, with the certainty that had carried her through years of rigorous training. Yes, absolutely yes. Cirrus's smile could have powered the entire dome as they pressed the seed pod into Nova's palm and drew her close for a kiss that tasted like the future and felt like coming home to a place they would build together from nothing but love and determination. We're going to Mars. Nova murmured against Cirrus's lips. We're going to Mars, Cirrus agreed. And we're going to show the universe what grows when two people decide to nurture love in impossible conditions, as they held each other in the dome that had become their courtship crucible. Surrounded by plants that dreamed of alien soil and technologies that would carry human life to distant worlds. Nova realized she had found something more essential than atmospheric composition or soil chemistry. She had found the one element that would make any world feel like home the evening of their engagement. Nova and Cirrus floated together in the low-gravity chamber. But tonight they weren't testing equipment or demonstrating protocols. Tonight they simply existed in the quiet space between Earth and their dreams of Mars. Wrapped in each other's arms and the knowledge that their love had become part of humanity's journey to the stars. Tell me about our garden, Nova whispered as they drifted in lazy spirals. Their bodies perfectly balanced in the reduced gravity that would soon become their daily reality. Cirrus adjusted their position so they could look into Nova's eyes while still maintaining their gentle orbital dance. Our garden will be the heart of the colony, they said softly, painting the vision in words that felt like a lullaby. A dome within the main habitat where Earth plants learn to dream Martian dreams and homesick colonists can remember the smell of rain and our herbs. Will grow in spiral beds that follow the mathematics of galaxy arms, Cirrus continued, their voice taking on the rhythmic quality that Nova had learned meant they were envisioning movement through space. Cherry tomatoes cascading like red stars against walls that filter alien sunlight into something warm and golden. Lettuce arranged in concentric circles that mirror the orbital paths of Martian moons. Nova felt herself relaxing into the vision, her scientific mind filling in details while her heart expanded with the beauty of shared purpose. The comfort herbs will release their fragrances at different times of day, she added, creating emotional atmospheres that help colonists adapt to the 37-minute longer Martian day. And in the center, Cirrus said, pressing closer so their words tickled against Nova's ear. We'll be our own small section where we plant the seeds from this pod, where we grow something that belongs only to us, the first flowers on Mars that were planted by people who fell in love while preparing to leave. The world where love was invented, they floated in comfortable silence, watching Earth's moon track across the chamber's viewing window while their plants whispered secrets in languages that transcended planets. Nova felt her heartbeat slow to match Cirrus's, felt her breathing settle into the rhythm that came when two people learned to share the same atmosphere. Are you scared? Cirrus asked eventually, their thumb tracing gentle circles on Nova's shoulder. Every day, Nova admitted, but not of Mars anymore. I'm scared we won't have enough time to love each other properly before we have to become pioneers and botanists and ambassadors for human survival. Then we practice now, Cirrus murmured, pressing a kiss to Nova's temple that felt like a promise being planted in fertile soil. We learn each other's rhythms and needs and dreams so thoroughly that when we wake up on Mars, loving you will feel as natural as breathing processed atmosphere. Nova turned in Cirrus's arms, a movement that in reduced gravity felt like a dance choreographed by physics and desire. Teach me, she said against their lips. Teach me how to love someone while building impossible things in impossible places. First lesson, Cirrus whispered back, is that love is the most adaptable organism in the universe. It learns to thrive in any conditions as long as it has two willing hearts to call home. Their kiss was soft, unhurried, full of the patient tenderness of people who had learned that some discoveries couldn't be rushed. Around them, their hybrid plants continued their slow growth toward an alien sun they would never see. Trusting in soil compositions and atmospheric blends that existed nowhere in nature.s, they held each other in the space between worlds. Nova felt her last anxieties settling like sediment in calm water. Tomorrow they would return to mission preparations, to training protocols and equipment testing and the 1,000 technical details required to keep humans alive on a hostile planet. But tonight, floating in each other's arms with moonlight painting silver patterns on the walls of their artificial atmosphere, they were simply two people who had found in each other the most essential element for any successful colonization, the ability to make anywhere feel like home as long as they were together. Promise me something, Nova said as drowsiness began to weight her eyelids despite the reduced gravity. Anything. Promise me that when we rolled in gray and tending our 100th generation of Mars tomatoes, you'll still remember the night you fell through my ceiling and changed the trajectory of my entire universe. Cirrus's smile was soft as earth rain, warm as alien sunlight filtering through protective domes. I promise, they whispered, and I promise something else too. What? I promise that someday, when Earth children learn about the first Mars colonies in their history classes, they'll learn that love was humanity's first successful crop on alien soil. Nova felt tears of contentment gather in her eyes as she pressed closer to Cirrus, their bodies finding perfect equilibrium in the artificial gravity that prepared them for their shared future. I love you, she whispered, the words floating between them like seeds carried on interplanetary winds. I love you too, Cirrus replied, their voice growing soft with approaching sleep. More than Earth's gravity, more than Mars' mysteries, more than the space between stars as they drifted together in their practice atmosphere. Surrounded by plants that would someday help humanity take root in alien soil, Nova felt herself falling into dreams where red planets bloomed with impossible gardens and love proved stronger than the vast emptiness between worlds, their breathing synchronized. Their heartbeats found a shared rhythm, and in the dome that had become their courtship chamber, Two people who had learned to fly together prepared to dream of the garden they would plant at the edge of forever, where Earth's love would take root in Martian soil. And human hearts would prove that no distance was too great for those brave enough to grow beautiful things in impossible places. Tomorrow would bring new preparations, new challenges, new steps toward a future written in the stars. But tonight, wrapped in each other's arms and the promise of shared dreams, Nova and Cirrus settled into sleep with the peaceful certainty of astronauts who had discovered that love was the most essential life support system of all. In their dreams, they danced through gardens that spanned galaxies, tended plants that bloomed in colors no Earth I had ever seen, and loved each other with the patient tenderness of people who had all the time in the universe to nurture the most beautiful crop humans had ever learned to grow. And so, dear listener, our space-bound lovers drift into dreams of tomorrow, where love will take root in alien soil and prove that some things are truly universal. May your own dreams be filled with the kind of love that's brave enough to plant itself anywhere, strong enough to grow in impossible conditions, and tender enough to make any world feel like home. Sleep well, and remember, love is always humanity's most successful mission to the stars. Thank you for joining Nova and Cirrus on their journey from earthbound longing to interplanetary love. Sweet dreams, space gardeners.